We intend to disseminate a case study in the community of migrants in the urban context of Almada. In this city with 175,000 inhabitants is a community of 50,000 descendants and natural of the Alentejo province, inserted in the wider context of about 500,000 people who, with the process of industrialization in several periods of the 20th century, and especially in the 60s, is present settled in the 18 municipalities of the metropolitan area of Lisbon. From 2014, with the recognition of Cante as intangible immaterial heritage by UNESCO, in the city of Almada, where there are 3 groups of Cante, 1 male and 2 female, was established in January 2015 the working group of Canto of Almada municipality, coordinated by us. This group is composed of 10 local and regional entities and institutions of local administration, teaching, protection, and ethnographic dissemination, which aim to safeguard Cante through teaching using traditional methodology as well new methods in public schools. It is our aim to contribute to the safeguarding of Cante, percepting and maintaining the spaces where it is practiced, to identify and perceive the symbolic meaning of the spaces where singing is performed, bounding tradition with emerging city identity like in streets and buildings. On the other hand, we want to understand the dynamics of Cante's change, coming from a region with rural characteristics, the Alentejo, and its evolutionary course in an urban reality like Almada, as a meeting point of the groups of Cante in the metropolitan area of Lisbon. Cante is a polyphonic vocal expression of oral tradition sung by amateur choirs without recourse to any instrumentation. It is characterized by the use of ponto, alto, and moda. Ponto is a solo voice that begins to sing in a more grave tone, usually between do and mi. Alto is a solo voice that follows the ponto in a sharper tone, usually a third above. Finally, the mother is sung in a chorus by the third voices, be it suddenly in the tavern or presented on stage or in a parade. Cante is associated with Alentejo, a province with an extensive geographical area of 31,551 square kilometers, which occupies about 1/3 of the national territory. However, its geographic space was initially limited roughly to the lower Alentejo, including Sado River, as João Ranita Nazaré says. When we want to cite this repertoire, we usually use the administrative designation Cantos from Lower Alentejo, which refers from the geographical point of view to an immense plain intersected by some shallow valleys, sui generis characteristics in relation to the general morphology of the Portuguese territory. But this has a raison d'être. It is in the Alentejo of the plain to lose sight that the telluric relation that the man from Alentejo, the Alentejano, has with the earth, made almost of love and hate, is best mirrored in Cante. And, as Pedro Ferro says, that defines it as nobody else does, it happens at dusk, when neither day nor night, and time breathes deep. That is why singing is telling a secret to the plain, that he keeps deep inside himself. The Alentejano does not sing with a sense of singing. The Alentejano says, and put lutes in the voice to say. It does so at dusk, at the hour of subsolar and sublunary time that makes everyone stop to listen to it, at nightfall, when the shadows wrap around the corner like cathedral ships. Its origin is not scientifically defined, although we find similarities in the polyphonic vocal forms in the Mediterranean basin, from the Maghreb to Corsica, or even in the liturgical songs, reason why some establish a connection with the monks that settled in the 16th century in the mountain range of Ossa Alandroal, of the schools of classic polyphony of the 15th century Nevra. This fact confers some geographic proximity with the left bank of the Guadiana River, where the mountain of Serpa is referred to as crib of the viola campanisa, an instrumental partner of Cante. But if the song also incorporates liturgical themes such as Sing to the Infant Jesus and others from Christmas work, and Saudade, longing, are very present. But love is not behind it, as is a certain period. It clearly presents profound characteristics, where nature, erotization of nature, sometimes with a great load of sensuality that induces us, or at least leave us the possibility of the physical realization of desire and passion, nothing platonic and not in keeping with the dogmas of practice of the Catholic Church. But Kant is not vulgar. On the contrary, is full of telluric lyricism and imbued with a great solemnity. It is in such an emotional way that it reaches to shiver soul. But what themes are sung and what is sung in this type of song? According to Pedro Ferro, the Kant portrays solitude and sadness, love and work, the joy, the sun and the earth, the sweat, sing the wheat and the storks, the emigration and the Alqueva Dam, sings death and life, anguishes and dreams, sings the lost man in the unreachable length. It is warm and tender, naive and serious, sober and sad, solemn as a cathedral. From this traditional music genre of the Alentejo, we hear of far more remote times as appear in the fifth book of the Philippines Ordinance in 1603. In fact, the legal norms prohibiting or limiting the playful practice of Kant seems to be constant, according to the news that arrives both from the civil government regulation of Beja of February 1866 and its December 1900 version, with the consequent popular reactions in January 1901 in Almodovar, which provoked the escape of local authorities. This fact originated the military occupation of the village for 3 days and several prisons. Also in Portel, we also find reference to legal postures, those from 1884 prohibiting singing in taverns. Paulo Lima refers the existence of the first organized group in Serpa in 1907, Serpa's Popular Orpheum. However, the oldest surviving group till nowadays is the choral group of the Aljustrel Miners Union, founded in 1926. During the long period of dictatorship, 1926 to 1974, Kant was a performative act with clear rules and identity meanings that could have benefit from the ideological control operated by the regime through the National Propaganda Secretariat and the National Federation of Joy at Work, especially since 1933 and 1941, when elected by the regime and one of the most representative practice of Alentejo region was object of folklorization, an instrument of ideological, political, and propagandistical purpose. However, Kant maintained, parallel to the formal presentation, the tradition of being sung unexpectedly in taverns, fact that the dictatorship could not control. After the revolution of 25 April of 1974, there was a generalized increase of Alentejo choral groups, since till this date there were only 20 choral groups in Alentejo. From 1974 until in 1998, 53 groups were founded, in which a substantial part was in the metropolitan area of Lisbon that covered the formal industrial waste area of Lisbon and Setúbal, where, due to migratory process, especially in the 60s, about 500,000 natural and descendants of Alentejo people are settled. Thus, the Cante was not only Alentejo. Later, with respect to the north and south bank of Tagus, Lisbon and Setúbal, went to Africa, Europe, North America. Choral groups have emerged in Évora, Portel, Monserrate, in central Alentejo, and later in Oporto, Algarve, in Tunes e Albufeira, and in Ribatejo, Chamusca. Recently, with the heritageization, Cante came also to Montemor Novo, central Alentejo, and to Porto Alegre, upper Alentejo. The most substantial increase of cultural groups from Alentejo occurs here in this province, with the proliferation of youth groups which presents a unique vocal quality, although in some cases has an ephemeral duration. The municipality of Castro Verde is a paradigmatic example to this increase, a municipality in which there are similarities to others in the sparsely populated Alentejo has only 8,000 inhabitants and it has today 10 choral groups. And on the eve of their heritageization in 2013, had 8. On the other hand, in the diaspora, the number of groups increased. Today, there are more than 30 male and female choral groups, and in 2017, a children's group was born in Almada. The Alentejo, throughout his history, has always seen its people live in search of better conditions of life. It was a man from Alentejo, Vasco da Gama, who in 1498 commanded the naval fleet that made the first voyage to India by sea, enabling a new world economic structure. Throughout the maritime expansion, when Portugal, a small country with a small population, was the protagonist of a modernity, many people from Alentejo would have embarked in the caravels and ships. But if migration cyclically happened due to several motivations and purpose for Brazil, Portuguese African later to Europe in the 60s, internal cyclic migration coincided with the industrialization process. This operated in the late 19th century and early 20th in the cork industry and in the 60s in the naval industry, which is the case of the city of Almada, where about 50,000 natives and descendants of Alentejo will be settled. This explosive increase is not unrelated to mass migration of Alentejo natives. This mass arrived in the 60s of the 20th century to work mainly in the naval industry. In Cacilhas, Almada Fluvio parish in front of Lisbon housed one of the largest shipyards in the world at that time, Lisnave, inaugurated in 1967, that reached a total of 10,000 workers, where the largest dry dock in the world would be built in 1971. Lisnave was dismantled in the late 70s and was formally closed in the year 2000. Also, many Alentejanos will work for the naval base of Alfeite, located in another Almada's fluvial parish, Laranjeiro, which is dedicated to the construction, maintenance and repair of the Portuguese Navy and of other military navies, as those from Neto and civil and merchant navies using advanced technologies. These migrant populations will inhabit several parishes of Almada, namely Cova da Piedade, Laranjeiro, and Feijó. We are now going to meet the larger spaces where these migrants, especially the men, will preserve their cultures and identity, and they do it singing in taverns and civil local associations. They give continuity to informal practice in singing in a urban context where the emergence of choral groups occurs. In these spaces of conviviality and fraternization, where the people from Alentejo meet for the end of the afternoon and at the weekend to drink a glass of wine, the cant comes naturally. It is through it that they collectively remember their village and its region and establish community with the motherland. A telluric, deeply religious relationship, according Pedro Ferro, Alentejo deeply sun solitude. Manuel de Fonseca also refers, men do not enter the church, just so they don't have to take off their hats. Pedro Ferro later mentions men never learn to pray. Perhaps it's because it's not necessary, because every Alentejano privatizes. It's carried without externalization, a cosmic, abyssal religiosity, and above all, instinctive, and also because singing is the only way the people from Alentejo has to pray. Ferro, still referring to the strong and peculiar religiosity of the Alentejo people, tell us, faith is not an imported article. It does not come from outside. It's not a product brought from out from the north by medieval monkish friars, opened to gates of heavens by blows of a club. Faith dwells within the man from Alentejo. It has the solidity of the earth and the horizon from the long time. The cant was made in the ranches of the wheat and rice harvest. The brotherhood of man and woman sang to soften the hardness of the agricultural work made from the sunrise to the sunfall. With the mechanization of agriculture, the cant was more restricted to the tavern, where the access was practically tied to the woman before 1974. In these communities of migrants who settled in the municipality of Almada in the decade of 60s of the 20th century, especially of the parishes of Cova da Piedade, Laranjeiro, and especially in Feijó, this social practice is valid and to certain extent reaches today, with only changes at the end of the 20th century, which allow the creation of women groups. But who is this man who gives himself the reunion with the Mother Earth and with himself in the moda that rises in the tavern around a glass of wine and thus communes with the collective? Again, according Pedro Ferro, Alentejano is a concentrated expression of all the shades that solitude can have. The solitude of the monk and the shepherd, the Maltese and the gypsy, the sailor and the shipwrecked, the ascetic and the Berber, the vagabond and the emperor, and of it all the solitude of the world in the heart of a man, scratching the empty path that no God created. And quoting Manuel de Fonseca, look at the vagabond who has nothing and carries the sun in his pocket. These spaces are located in a parish, Feijó, that still maintains traces of identity, marked by the proximity and recognition of the neighborhood, so characteristic of the rural reality of Alentejo from where Cante emerged. The set of a single-family dwellings, which constitute neighborhoods with a configuration similar to the traditional ones according to architect Raul Linus, from 1879 to 1974, is the place for the location of the intimate spaces destined to the snacks that are accompanied by wine, which always serves to wet the word. The consumption of traditional snacks not available in the spaces of the city, characterized by postmodernity, is a pretext for meeting and reaffirming the bonds of socio-cultural solidarity. In these intimate spaces, symbolic images of the origins, almost myths of its creators and goers, proliferate. Aromatic herbs, almost all with healing properties that persist in telling stories to those who ask for what are they for, thus maintaining the continuity of traditional knowledge. In urban world where the primordial telluric element is lacking, these elements are fixes of memories and guarantee of the cultural continuity of this community. From the places of unplanned encounters, traditional masculine, close to the outside look, we find in the city of the diaspora the preference for spaces with numinous characteristics par excellence. In what refers to the proportion of the interior space, destined to the playful celebration, where on stage generates the sacred performance before an audience that remains in complete silence. These spaces dedicated to the meeting of the current feminine and masculine groups are, in general, the associations of recreational clubs that constitute the elements of the centrality of the neighborhood. Here the planned meetings take place and the performance aims at the perfection of the content that is transmitted in an almost liturgical way. Urban spaces are ritualized with the stamp of the pagan tradition through the cant that, besides the voice, expresses itself in the body of the performers through the Alentejo identity marks, traditional design of garments that tell us stories in a prideful way. This ritualization can happen in the open public space, such as plazas and large avenues, but it is better represented in nature itself, according great part of the performers. The municipal councils would be the main supporting institutions of the Alentejo choral groups in the democratic period since 1974, both in terms of financial and logistical support, according Jorge Muniz. And it actually happens in Almada, where the support from the parish of Laranjeira e Feijó is to be highlighted. With the elevation of Cante to intangible cultural heritage of humanity on 27 November 2014 in Paris by UNESCO, it was necessary to proceed for its safeguard. As the average age of the members of the choral groups is 60 and more years, and not only 70, it was necessary to begin the teaching of Cante to perpetuate the existence of the group to face the natural aging of the singers. Thus, it was created in Almada the working group of Cante of the municipality of Almada in January 2015. Two school groups were involved, Emílio Navarro School Grouping and Francisco Simões School Grouping. In the first one was carried out specific activities of Cante divulgation to the school community. In the second, teaching in the classroom started through rigorous structured and methodological work with the use of formal and informal methods by primary school teachers and a master traditional trainer. Solid foundations were being laid for renewal and revitalization. The functioning of two groups in the 2016-17 and 2017-18 academic years generated the creation of an infantile group at the end of 2017. The creation of Cante Alentejano's children's group of the Francisco Simões School is the most visible result of the work undertaken of the working group of Cante since 2015 with the educational community of the county. In January 2018 emerged a group of Cante in a senior university. On the other hand, on the first and third anniversaries of Cante as UNESCO Immaterial World Heritage, our working group organized with the support of several entities of the municipality the event Almada Honors Cante that involved 3,000 people. In 2015, this group organized a colloquium with 200 participants and the edition of a number of magazine Memória Alentejana, where for the first time was published the survey of 30 Alentejo choral groups in the diaspora. In the same year, 2015, this group organized a show of Cante performance in an Almada showroom that was made for more than 1,000 spectators. This show was considered by Association Mother, that represents all the groups of Cante, the most important celebratory event of the first anniversary of Cante in the country. In 2017, under the same motto, the Arts and Enogastronomy Fair was held a performance in a closed space of the municipality and several street performers in the 11 parishes of the city, which involve entities representing not only the community with Alentejo origin, but also of the cultural, socio-educational of the county. While in the area of the education we intend to consolidate and extend to other classes, at another school in the same group there are 6 classes waiting for financial support to start the learning of Cante. There has been an exchange with the school grouping of Castro Verde in Alentejo with a study travel that occurred in 2017 of these students to Almada, and in April 2018 with a study travel to Castro Verde of the students from Almada. These procedures registered the availability of educational and autarchic leaders of Alentejo County to promote its continuity to the future. With the Cante workshop planning soon, it is intended to have a physical space within a municipality vacant building dedicated only to Cante. This building is located near the civil centre of Feijó Parish, and it's not a kind of Rocio Portuguese word that symbolizes the Roman traditional centripetal heart of the town, but it's a place where Cante can be taught to the next generations, and it is near the traditional neighborhood where the spiritu locus of Alentejo is still alive to be remembered. Because living in the city is more than inhabited, city planners must see, listen, and comprehend the laws of its inhabitants. We believe they do so, that there would be a better fluidity of the city discourse interpretation and consequent enhance of quality of life values for the local and the visitors, including tourists. In the near future, we intend to create a database on this subject, and with a project awaiting for approval in the Science and Technology Foundation, it is planned to create, within the framework of CHAM, our investigation centre, an international interdisciplinary scientific team to analyze the characteristics of urban culture where immaterial heritage has its representations and Cante its own role.